What is up, you wonderful, amazing, beautiful people? It is Wayne here. Today I want to do something a little different. I was, struggling to, figure out what I wanted to do for my next, video, and I was kind of not burnt out, but doing like deep dives of like albums and eras that takes research and time, and I just really wanted to put something out, and I was like, oh well, why not, rank some stuff or do rankings and stuff like that. So that's what I'm gonna do. So in today's video I am going to rank the discography of none other than Miss Beyoncé. Beyoncé is one of my favorite artists of all time, and in my humble opinion, one of the greatest entertainers this world has ever known. Right up there, like in top 5. And I just thought she'd be the perfect artist to start off this series, which, I want this to be a series. So if you enjoy this, please let me know and like, and if you're new here, consider subscribing and checking out some of my other videos. But if you enjoyed this, please let me know. I would like to do this with some other artists. But starting out, we're going to start with Miss Beyoncé. And just setting some, rules. This list will only include Beyoncé's 7 solo studio albums. So that means no Destiny Child albums. Everything is Love, The Gift. None of those will be on this list. It's just Beyoncé's core 7 studio albums. Also, this is all my opinion. I'm not trying to say one thing or another about any of the albums on this list. These are all great albums. These are all my opinion. And I felt like stirring the pot a little, and I feel like a lot of my opinions on Beyonce's albums differ from the majority. So let's dive in. So, coming in at number 7, we have Dangerously in Love, Beyoncé's debut album. Let me make it clear that Beyoncé Giselle Knowles Carter is not capable of putting out a bad album. Like, that's just not a thing. It's not possible. It's just not a thing. But obviously, when, you're ranking albums, one of them has to be at the bottom. And in my opinion, when you stack Dangerously in Love with, when you stack it against all of her other albums, this one is the weakest in my opinion. But this is Beyonce we're talking about. Therefore, her weakest albums, quote unquote, are usually miles ahead of other artists, best albums. Dangerously in Love obviously has the classics on there, like Crazy in Love, Baby Boy, Me, Myself and I, Naughty Girl, and the title track. And you've got the amazing deep cuts like Signs, and the criminally underrated Speechless and Be With You. But no shade, but there's some very questionable ones on there. Hip Hop Star and That's How You Like It. Those aren't my cup of tea. I wouldn't call them bad, but I definitely, just one of the, I listened to those once and then I never listened to them again. But regardless, Dangerously in Love is still one of the greatest debut albums ever, and the best part about it is that the quality of Beyonce's music would just continue to increase as time went on. So love Dangerously in Love, but I had to put it at the bottom. Coming in up next at number 6, we have Beyonce's 4th studio album, 4. Now, I'll be honest, when 4 first came out back in 2011, I was somewhat in the middle when it came to my opinion of it. Generally, the general, opinion of it was some people hated it and some people loved it. It was very lukewarm. The reception was very lukewarm. I remember, people didn't really understand why Beyonce wanted to do a classic soulful R&B record, during a time when R&B was like commercially doing the worst that it ever had in my lifetime, at least, because the big thing at the time was EDM and pop. Everybody was doing that, was on that train. Like Usher was doing it. A lot of R&B artists, they switched over to EDM and pop to kind of stay current. Previously, R&B artists, were trying to kind of transitioning, and Beyonce refused to do that. And the Beyonce is washed up arguments were flying all over the place. People were saying she was over and that she peaked and all this other nonsense. And personally, I enjoyed much of the album, but it just really wasn't what I was expecting from her. Especially after an era as explosive as I Am Sasha Fierce, with worldwide hits like like Single Ladies and Halo and stuff like that. And then it didn't help that when Run the World Girls came out, it did not do nearly as well as her previous lead singles like Crazy in Love and Single Ladies. And going off of that, it definitely wasn't Crazy in Love or Single Ladies, but I still loved it. It was still very Beyonce. But when the album came after that, when the album finally came out, this is so random and weird, but the first thing I remember is I just didn't like the track listing order. I didn't like the way that the track list was set up. 1+1 opened the album, and then you followed that with I Care and I Miss You. And I adore those songs, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't how I was used to Beyonce albums starting out, especially when she had previous album openers like Crazy in Love and Deja Vu. Starting an album with 3 slow songs just wasn't something that made sense to me at the time. But even to this day, I still believe the 2013 reissue did a much better job of reordering the songs and creating a much more balanced track list. But as time went on, me and the rest of the world slowly realized just how good of an album 4 is, and I really regret not appreciating it back then, because this is really a great album. I love 4 so much. There's so many gems on there. Party, Countdown, End of Time, and Dance for You are some of my favorites from that album as far as the singles go, or the more popular ones. And Rather Die Young is a very, very, very underrated song in her catalog. One of my favorite deep cuts from her. But yes, I'm glad 4 finally is getting its flowers, because it was a rough time when it came out. People really were dogging on her at the time, but I'm glad that she did what she did and stuck with what she wanted to do. And that's what's so amazing about Beyonce, is that she's not gonna ride trends. She's always gonna do what she wants to do. And the ironic part is, like, I feel like if a song like Love on Top came out today, it would be like a top 10 single. I really do. But yes, 4, love it. All right, coming up next at number 5, we have Lemonade. And go ahead and get it out of your system. Oh my goodness, Wayne, how could you put Lemonade so far down on the list? Listen, Lemonade is a legendary album. It shifted culture in a way that no other body of work could hope to. Pray You Catch Me is unironically one of my favorite Beyonce album openers, and I know I just gave 4 flack for opening with a down-tempo song, but I don't care. Oh well, it just works better here. Hold Up is iconic. Don't Hurt Yourself brings out a rage in me that I absolutely love. Sorry, 6-inch, Daddy Listens, Love Drought, and Formation are all gems to me. From the last 2 or 3 breakups I had, Lemonade was on repeat. Experiencing the Lemonade era in real time was amazing and unforgettable, and the film and all of that, it was a culturally defining album. That being said, I don't like it as much as everybody else. The honest to God truth is that I only enjoy like maybe a little over half of the album. When I'm listening to the album, I listen from Pray You Catch Me all the way up to Love Drought, but once Love Drought ends, I pretty much skip everything all the way to Formation, and then that's it. And when the Sorry demo came out on digital services, I listened to the Sorry demo, and I don't hate the songs that I skip, except for Forward. I really do not like Forward. Freedom, I could take it or leave it. All Night, that was a fan favorite. Everybody loved that song. All Night, I really didn't care for it. I think I'm missing one, but again, I love the album, but I just did not love it as much as everybody else did. I really base how I feel about an album I base that off of, can I sit down and listen to this album all the way through and not have the urge to skip a song? And Lemonade, I can't listen to the whole thing, and mostly because I joke that like I like the chaos. I don't like when she starts reconciling the relationship in the story, in the story of Lemonade. I want rage, I want anger, I want the sadness, I want the drama. I don't want the redemption and all that. I'm not being serious, but I just like the drama. So when she starts, trying to be optimistic, that's when I'm like, all right, now let's skip to Formation. But on a more serious note, I see a lot of people say that Lemonade is Beyonce's best album, and I respect that opinion, I really do. But I respectfully disagree. But hear me out. I believe many people's opinion of Lemonade is inflated by two things: the visual and the sheer impact that the album had on the world and culture. And if you rank her albums with all of those things considered, then I'm very inclined to agree with you. But if we're talking solely about the music and just music and, what's on the album, I think she has far better albums, in my opinion, The fact of the matter is everyone ranks albums differently and everybody's taste is different. I honestly just don't revisit Lemonade as often as her other albums that are higher up on my list. I still love everything about it regardless. It was a side of Beyonce that I would never have expected to see the light of day, and I'm so glad that we got to see it. Just that amount of just rawness, and I love it. And I don't hate this album. Don't read me. I don't want people saying, "Oh, Wayne thinks Lemonade's a bad album." No, that's not what I said. It's just I don't like it as much as everybody else, but I still love it. Coming up next, at number 4, we have I Am Sasha Fierce. Now, yes, I'm going to be dragged, up and down because, you think I Am Sasha Fierce is better than Lemonade. What is wrong with you? Again, my opinion, my video, I can say what I want. But also, I Am Sasha Fierce just has a lot of sentimental value to me. Everything I have to say about this album, though, I pretty much already said in the video that I did on it, so feel free to check that out. But in short form, Sasha Fierce, it gets a lot of unfair flack for a lot of reasons. Some think it's too pop oriented, some think it's too unfocused, some hate the double disc format. I find myself defending this album like every other week on Twitter from people who just like to call it a bad album, but people fail to realize that Sasha Fierce is responsible for launching Beyonce into a superstar stratosphere. Yes, she was a force to be reckoned with before, but if you didn't see single ladies take over the world in real time like I did, then you simply won't get it. And beyond that, there's some absolute hidden gems on this record that's even some casual Beyonce fans have never heard before. Disappear, Smash Into You, That's Why You're Beautiful, Hello, Scared of Lonely. And sure, the album is roughly 20 songs long when you take into account the 2 to 3 reissues that came out for it, but I strongly urge you to give this one another listen if you don't like it or if you haven't listened to it in a while. It's almost like a breath of fresh air. But if you need any more convincing, then please go check out the video I did on it. This album is just very special to me. And yeah, I said everything I need to say in that one. So moving on. All right, we're down to the top 3. And at number 3, we have B-Day. Now, people do not give B-Day its flowers, and it bothers me to no end. I don't get it. People just do not talk about this album. And I'm here to tell you that B-Day is a skipless album. B-Day is a masterpiece. People leave it out of the conversation because it's only her second album, and everything she did after 2013 was just so revolutionary that everything before it kind of pales in comparison. Personally, I look at Beyonce's solo career in 2 parts. There was a very distinct shift in her career after the release of Self-Titled. There was Beyonce before she put out Self-Titled and Beyonce after Self-Titled, and those that get it, get it. I call a lot of things underrated, but B-Day is very, very underrated. The album and the era both are, honestly. Even looking at the lead single, Deja Vu, looking at Deja Vu in comparison to Beyonce's other lead singles, her leads are always iconic. Everyone knows Crazy in Love, everyone knows Single Ladies, everyone knows Formation. But Deja Vu, nobody talks about Deja Vu, as much. And I would argue that some of her best performances have been of Deja Vu, and that's a crime. People leave it out of the conversation. And speaking of Self-Titled, Beyonce's affinity for visual albums has its roots in this very album, and no one seems to recall that. People were astounded at her giving every song on Self-Titled its own music video, but she had already done that very thing 7 whole years prior with B-Day. And as much as I love listening to albums, there's very few that I can listen to without wanting to skip a song or two, and B-Day is one of those albums. Every time I put it on, I listen to it uninterrupted from start to finish. And if you pay attention, you'll realize that this one doesn't sound like anything else that was out at the time. It has such a distinct sound that stands out even when you put it up against Beyonce's own catalog. And it's crazy to think that she recorded it in only 2 weeks. But I absolutely adore this album. I really do. I can't even pick a favorite from it because I just love every single song from it so much. And it's another one of those albums that I didn't really appreciate it when it came out. But years later, I gave it a listen and I was like, oh my gosh, like this album is just like on 100 from start to finish. And I love it. I love it so much. All right, and number 2 on my ranking of Beyonce's albums is Renaissance. It's usually hard for me to rank anything accurately while it's still so fresh. I know we're not quite a year from Renaissance's release, but it's still, but long enough, but not quite at a year. So it's like it's been out a while, but not long enough. But I can confidently say that Renaissance deserves to be this high on my list. For anyone to be 20 plus years into their career and continuously outdo themselves with each subsequent release is something to be applauded. And when you manage to stop the world with each release in the way that Beyonce does, it's even more amazing. Renaissance, despite having no visuals yet or really any promotion at all, somehow manages to beat out all of Beyonce's other albums, in my opinion. Just standing on the music alone, and that's really saying something. The album is just that good to me. I have never experienced an album like Renaissance. It's such a seamless experience. The track to track transitions are crazy and out of this world, and I am amazed at how well it flows every time I listen to it. It's an album that you're obligated to listen to from start to finish because you just want to get the full effect. And the lack of acknowledgement of the album from Beyonce almost adds another weird layer to the music. It's like an air of mystery. I really don't know how to describe it. When I listen to this album, and I'm still listening to it almost 8 months after its release, I'm listening to it daily, mind you. I have to create a visual in my head because I have nothing else to go by. And I think that's really cool, honestly. These days, most songs and their music videos drop at the same time or in very close proximity to one another. And, like, for example, for a lot of people, the first time they experience a song is while watching the music video. The first time I experienced Lemonade was while watching the film. So whenever I listen to the album Lemonade, its visuals pop into my head. Renaissance calls back to a time when songs and albums came out and, there wouldn't be visuals for months, so you just had to sit on the music and you had to kind of formulate in your head what visuals go along with that. And that's something that people don't really talk about. And I really like that, and boy, Beyonce is really replicating that no visuals for months thing. But seriously, I want the visuals just as bad as everybody else. But the fact that I can still enjoy the music as much as I am without any kind of visuals for it, that's saying something. That's saying something to the quality of the music. And Renaissance stands so tall and so high above not just Beyonce's other albums, but just other albums in general, just off the music itself. And that's really hard to do. So yes, I absolutely adore this album. And it was a struggle to kind of decide, because this was going to be number 1, but I ultimately decided to put it at number 2 because number 1 has sentimental value to me, I guess. And without further ado, let's move on to number 1, which is Beyonce's self-titled album. Now, Beyonce's self-titled album, which I'm going to refer to it as self-titled, it was one of those things where, like, you remember exactly where you were when it happened, when it dropped. I will never forget that night. December 13, 2013. I will never forget that night. It was a school night, and I was laying in bed, and I was up later than I usually was. I was up later than I was, and I was just scrolling on. This is back when I had Tumblr. So I was scrolling on Tumblr, and somebody just randomly said, it was about like midnight, a little after midnight, and somebody said, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And they posted like a screenshot of iTunes, and it was Beyonce. And that's all it said, was Beyonce. And mind you, going back even further than that, if you were a Beyonce fan in 2013, then you remember the drought real quick, not to get into too, go too far back and get too long-winded, but if you go back to 2013, she was about to perform at the Super Bowl, and like, oh, she's definitely gonna put something out because the Super Bowl is coming up. And then Grown Woman, I remember that. I can't remember if it leaked, or I think it leaked. She never put it out officially until Self-Titled came out. And then I remember the H&M commercial, and Standing on the Sun, and she performed it at the Miss Carter show, and she performed that and Grown Woman. And so like there was something was coming, but nothing. Months went by and nothing, and then we were seeing screenshots of her filming music videos. There was every week there was a new picture of her filming a music video, and we had no idea what was going on. And by like September, October, I was absolutely frustrated. I didn't know what was going on, and I just kind of gave up. I was like, whatever, she'll put it out when she wants to, I guess, or whatever. I was not expecting a new album until summer 2014. But anyway, sitting in bed, midnight, see it on Tumblr, and it was so like early that like I was watching the internet kind of realize it as it was happening, because I was searching Beyonce album, nothing was popping up. Like a few minutes later, Beyonce album, it was everywhere. I was freaking out. I couldn't even go to sleep, and I couldn't listen to it because I didn't have an Apple product at the time. So like it was like iTunes exclusive at the time, so I couldn't listen to it yet. So I was frustrated, and I went to school the next day and would not shut up about it all day long. I got my Spanish teacher to play a little bit of it, but she would only play the clean tracks, a little bit of them. And then finally I got home, and throwback, if you remember Groove Shark, that's when I listened to the album. And everything after that, it was so different from what I knew from what Beyonce was. I felt that shift in her career. Self-Titled is just a amazing album, to me. And not even mentioning the visuals, and just everything about it. That album is very, very special to me. Just everything from the simplistic cover, there's no special title. It's literally just Beyonce. And this woman broke records. This woman changed how the industry, the surprise release, she changed how the industry worked. It was unlike anything that I had ever seen before in my life. And it was amazing. I can't describe to you just how that felt, that absolute hype, and just changed the game when that digital drop. Know where you was when that digital drop. I stopped the world. Like she did it, and it was such a moment, and it's number one it's my favorite Beyonce album, and the top of my list just off of that, that moment alone. But just talking about music, like Haunted is one of my favorite Beyonce songs of all time. It's probably like top 3. I just love Haunted so much. Drunk in Love, Partition, No Angel, very, very underrated. Jealous, Mine, EXO, Flawless, all of those. I love those songs so much. Self-Titled is, to me, Beyonce's best body of work at this point. Yeah. And it would always have a special place in my heart. So, all right, folks, and that's my ranking of Beyonce's catalog. What did you think? Did you agree with some of my picks? Did you disagree? Did you like the list? Did you hate the list? Please give me some feedback. Let me know, and tell me your own ranking of Beyonce's albums. I want to know what y'all think and what's y'all's favorites and what do y'all hate. If you enjoyed this video and want to see me do more artists, please recommend me some artists, even maybe artists I don't listen to, and I'll dive into their, discography and, rank it. But yes, please give me some recommendations, give me some feedback. Please, if you're new here, like and subscribe, check out some of my other videos. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far, and I will see you in the next video. I love you all. Goodbye.